It's time for some more of your favorite Mets stories told by your favorite Mets. I'm your host, Mike Janella, and with me today, one of the iciest members of the 99-2000 Mets bullpen. When he came out with that gold chain, you knew it meant business. Pat Mahomes, how you doing today?
Doing just great. Thank y'all for having me.
It's a pleasure. A pleasure for me always to talk to any members from that team because that was the team that I loved the most growing up. I was in high school in Jersey. You were cool. You were winning. It was fun. And it's always fun for me chatting with guys from that team like you. So thanks for taking the time. And what have you been up to in these last 20 years? What are you up to now?
Well, actually, I have a baseball academy here in Texas. Currently I have 4 teams. So that takes most of my time between practices and tournaments and, trying to develop the younger players so that they're ready to go once they get to high school or the college level or maybe even pro. But that's most of it. And, of course, running around watching Patrick play football too. It takes a good bit of my time too.
Well, it's a worthwhile thing to take a bit of your time because he's always delivering and playing well on the field. So it's good things that sounds like you're doing. And back in Texas where it all started for you, you traveled so much, and we're going to talk about a lot of places you've been and your time here with the Mets especially. But what's it like now to be back home where it all started for you growing up? And you grew up a Mets fan. Do I remember you saying that one time?
Yes, I always was a Mets fan. Wanted to play for the Mets. I actually thought I was going to get drafted out of high school by the Mets. That's the team that showed the most interest. So I was pretty excited about that and thought I was there. And then the Twins took me 1 pick before the Mets did.
It's how life happens sometimes, right? But you ended up there eventually. But before we get to you actually playing at Shea, for me, for a lot of people watching, we grew up locally. It kind of makes sense, right? Growing up in Texas, what made you a Mets fan all the way out there?
Well, Dwight Gooden, Darryl Strawberry, the guys from that team, just seemed to have kind of the same personality I did, went out there and tried to throw the ball by people, had a little bravado, a little cockiness, and that's kind of how I patterned my game, to be like those guys. So I just always loved the Mets.
I got Doc right here in bobble form, so game recognized game, and those were the teams that I was watching as a kid, and then you and your squad come along a little bit later, and 99, what a year for you. 8-0 out of the pen, the 3.68 ERA. If you're into the advanced analytics, a 121 ERA plus, which is awesome. Once you finally got to Shea, because that's the dream that every Mets fan has as a kid, you actually got to live it out. What was it like when you finally got to Queens and got to perform that well?
Unbelievable. I know a lot of people in New York are Yankees fans, but, the Mets to me was, always the team. And to get a chance to actually play for them when I stepped on that mound the first time, it was like the most exciting thing that had ever happened in my career.
And then you did so well. Obviously, you bounced the first few years of your career between the starting and the pen. You ended up in Japan for a couple of years. But then with the Mets, it felt like 99, you finally unlocked everything. Was it because you were just finally playing for the team you wanted to all these years, or was it something mechanically? What was it for you that when you finally got here clicked for that awesome season?
Well, I think it was a couple things. Probably the number one thing was I finally had a manager that really believed in me and would put me in any situation. He knew I was going to go out there and give it my all and perform. And I felt like, I really didn't want to let him down, because he was taking a chance, putting me in situations where, some other guys with a little bit more experience may have been pitching, but I was able to go out there and deliver. Probably the second thing was the fans at Shea. I know from playing against them, from playing against the Yankees, from being in New York, that if you don't go out there and perform, they're going to boo you. So
yeah.
there's always that in the back of my mind that if I don't go out there and do my job, I know I'm going to hear it, and I didn't want to hear it.
And you gave him reason not to, especially some of those numbers I threw out. You mentioned Bobby V, and I think a lot of the guys in that team have a real fondness for him. Were you already up at the big league level when he had the mustache in the dugout that one game, or were you not up?
I was excited. I was pitching at the time,
Oh, you were, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I was pitching at the time, and he came in there, and I looked over, and I just kind of glanced at him, and I was like, "What the hell's going on?" And then I started laughing and just tried to stay focused and go back out there, and we ended up winning the game. And seeing him run out there on the field with that on, I was like, we're going to get in trouble. But it was a pretty exciting time.
Man, worth it though. I mean, that team from Bobby down to everybody, just such good camaraderie. What other stories come to your mind first from your time? Because it was short, but it was sweet. You were here 2 seasons, but it was 2 of the most successful seasons in team history. So many good teammates, so many good games and memories. Which ones stick out for you when you think back?
Well, probably, the Grand Slam single or whatever that Ventura hit, the role trying to get it, and the last few days of that season trying to make the playoffs and knowing that we were such a good team and it was going to be a shame if we didn't make the playoffs. And then probably, the series with Atlanta, trying to come back from 3-0 and going out there and pitching. And one of my favorite, I pitched a couple innings in game 4 and 5, and I was sitting down there with Al Jackson, who I love to death, who was the bullpen coach. And I was asking him, I was like, who do you think is going to be first in today? Figuring, we had a couple of guys that hadn't pitched yet, figuring they would be first. And he goes, probably you. And about that time, the phone rings, and they're telling me to get up, and it's the first inning with no outs and the bases loaded. I'm like, oh, my God. And to be able to go out there and pitch, 4 strong innings and give us a chance to come back and tie the game and, have a chance to win that game probably was one of my best memories.
So I want to tackle a couple of those, but I think in reverse order so that we go kind of chronologically. You mentioned because to get to the playoffs in '99, that last series against Pittsburgh, you guys got to sweep them, and you needed some help to force the playoff against Cincy and then to actually make it in. And you were huge that weekend too. You pitched games 1 and 3 of that series, I think Friday and the Sunday. And on that Friday, you got the win, right? And it was 2 innings that you pitched, and that game was a walk-off at Shea, if I remember. What was the vibe like in the clubhouse? What was it like for you between the ears that weekend? I mean, that had to be some of the most intense baseball you ever were around.
Well, it was very nerve-wracking. I mean, it was very nerve-wracking until the phone rang and I knew I was going in the game. And then once I got in the game after I threw that first pitch, just everything seemed to calm down. But just knowing what was on the line, knowing that you're not going to be perfect, but you got to try to be perfect. I kind of like that feeling, being in the fire, knowing that, every pitch means something and that, you better not have any lapses. You better be going out there and you don't have to have your best stuff, but you better have your best location and try to execute the pitch to the best of your ability.
I'm glad you said that about how you kind of live for those moments because I assumed, because then you guys do make the playoffs and it's your first trip to the postseason in the bigs. And you're great. I mean, 8 innings across the 2 series, the DS and the NLCS. And like you mentioned, that game 6, I mean, what an effort coming in for Al in that first inning. And obviously the game didn't end up the way that we wanted, that you wanted. But like you said, you gave the team a chance to win when it looked like that chance was very slim. How much did you relish that big moments, the big stage? You said you loved playing with bravado. Was that all kind of part of the package, that the brighter the lights, the more excited you were?
Exactly. Knowing that your team is dependent on you, knowing what kind of team we had, I knew we could come back if I just went out there and kept it where it was and, and didn't give up any runs, kept us in the game. I knew that the bats were going to come alive. But that one thing about that team, I mean, we were always together, whether it was on the field, off the field or whatever. So we had that closeness and, to go out there in front of, 50,000, 60,000 people and then the world watching you on TV. I mean, what better time to shine than then? So, I just tried to go out there, keep the team fired up, have a little swag, but try to just go out there and execute and do my job.
Well, that's what I remember watching you was that swag. You just seemed cool. Like you were out there and it was like, wow, that guy looks like he's having fun and he's talking the game, but he's backing it up. And I think a lot of the guys on that team carried that same confidence, whether it was quiet confidence or a little bit more outspoken confidence. What teammates were you closest with? You said, I mean, we know the whole club was kind of close and you said it yourself, but who were you individually maybe tightest with those years?
Ricky Henderson, I was with him every day. He was my childhood hero growing up. to get a chance to play with him, I was like a sponge. I was just trying to soak up everything I could from him, every piece of knowledge, every piece of baseball I could get from him. And so I was with him every day. Lenny Harris, which Coop, he used to call me the glue. He said, I'm the one that made everything stick together. So, we had a lot of fun, both of us kind of, lighten the clubhouse's mood. We kind of kept everything going. So, me and him hung out a lot. And then of course, Mike, you gotta have a relationship with your catcher. And we seem to have a real good one.
Ricky, I mean, that guy was a walking story. You got to have some good, funny stories you can tell of hanging out with him, whether at the stadium or not. Give me some good Ricky stuff, because that's got to be a lot in those books.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of them that I could share, but I probably better not share on this. But the funniest things to me about him was he didn't know anybody's name. He had a nickname for everybody. He couldn't remember people's name, and he would, like he called Dennis Cook Lefty, and he called Turk, crazy man. But the thing about Rick is he would write down, but on the first, at the first of the month, he would write down what his batting average was going to be, how many stolen bases he was going to have at the next month, on that day. And he would be right on the number every time. And I was like, that's amazing. I mean, how can you do that? It's like he could do whatever he wanted to do. And I mean, that's crazy, especially in this game.
How do you think, because he was such a marvel, right? Playing as long as he did, keeping in the shape he did. Have you talked to him lately? You seen him lately? How do you think he'd do if you put him in a lineup today? I think he might still go like 1 for 4 maybe if he wanted.
He can still play. He can still hit. Yeah, I talked to Ricky. He actually, this is the first year. He normally come to the game when we play in Oakland, when Patrick and him would play. He'd come and we'd hook up and hang out and go have dinner and stuff. But Ricky is still in incredible shape, and I imagine if he went out there, he could still 25, 30 bases, and I guarantee he'd hit 250.
Especially nowadays with the stolen base not really being what it was back then. I'm sure he'd love it. He'd be the one guy that's actually trying to take second every time he's on base.
Exactly. He's a guy that knows how to do it. I mean, I would watch him, teaching the younger guys, Cedeno and Melvin Moore, and teaching them how to steal bases, what he looked for. And it was just marvelous how much he knows and how good he was at his craft.
Speaking of the game changing from when you were playing it, this past season, the universal DH, pitchers not hitting in the NL, some talk of maybe that being permanent. You used to rake at the plate, Pat. So what are your thoughts? Did you love that? Are you afraid of seeing that go away for the game? You have any thoughts on how maybe that'll be a little bit different in the future?
Well, I love hitting, I mean, it was one of the most fun things to do in baseball for me. So after not getting to do it for the first, 7, 8 years of my career, being in the American League, once I got a chance to do it in the National League, I mean, it just made the game that much more fun.
And you were good at it. At 99, that first season, you finally get to swing a bat. You hit .313. I think had an OPS over 800. So it wasn't just you were taking some walks. You were legit. I remember, who was it? It was at the Cubs, right? Didn't you get the game-winning hit in the top of the inning at Wrigley and then shut them down in the bottom half? That was, yeah. I'm remembering that right? Right. I
had the game-winning hit and then went out and finished the game with a strikeout of Jeff Reed, I think it was. But yeah, I loved hitting. I mean, I worked at it. I mean, in it, if you're going to be good at anything, you really have to work at it. And so I worked at it. I hit every day. So I look forward to when I got my chance to hit, and I tried to make the best of it I could.
And you did. And I always thought it was exciting because then when you put in that extra work and it pays off, like how much cooler does it get than you get the game-winning hit in one half of the inning, then you slam the door in the other half? That's awesome to me.
Well, it's one of the worst feelings for a pitcher, that's pitching against to give up the game-winning hit to another pitcher. You think you got an out. So I wanted to make sure that every time I came to the plate that I tried my best to do everything I could.
That's amazing. Well, I do want to ask a couple questions about Patrick because even back to your Mets days, he's been linked. I mean, I remember seeing him walking around the field as a kid beforehand, and you had him in the clubhouse, and he rocks your throwback jersey now. We've seen that in his pro career. I mean, number one, how cool is that for you as a dad to see him rocking your gear when he's doing his thing now?
Yeah, it was, his first primetime game, and he wanted to do it to kind of honor me. And, it made me feel great. I mean, anytime that, your kid is honoring you, I mean, that's one of the proudest moments you can have as a dad. But that's where it all started for him there at Shea Stadium. I started taking him to the field when he was 5 years old, and I would take him out there, and the coaches would be worried, he's going to get hurt, he's going to get hit or whatever, but I said, if he gets hit, he won't do it again. So, he caught his first fly ball there, first big league fly ball off Robin Ventura's bat. And it's things like that that he'll never forget. And I'm just glad that I was able to be a part of it.
I think because you see a lot across different sports now, a lot of second-generation athletes getting to the top levels, or maybe back in the day you didn't. I think a lot of that, my personal opinion, is because of guys like you that were bringing their kids around early to the clubhouses. How much do you think in your career were you thinking about at the time, or was it just, hey, I'm bringing my kid to work because it's really cool?
Well, I always thought Patrick was going to have a chance to play, but I like to bring him around the clubhouse and work with him, plus I get to spend time with him. But I wanted him to see how hard the other guys on the team were working to stay where they were at, and to kind of, and that's one of the things he always mentions in his interview. He got to see how, other people on the team put in work and how hard they worked to try to get better, even though they were at the top of their games. They still were working every day trying to improve. And I think that helps him out a lot because he's always working, trying to get better, even though, he's won an MVP, he's won a Super Bowl. But, his drive to get better every day, I think, was instilled from going to the clubhouse and then seeing other guys work at their craft.
Patrick has won a Super Bowl already. Has he let you wear the ring yet?
He actually ordered me one, so I'm waiting on mine to get in. So once it gets in, I'll have my own, so I won't have to worry about it.
That's what I'm talking about. I mean, what was it, like 220 diamonds or something in that thing? That's a rock. That's pretty cool to get on the finger one time.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
Oh, that's great. Hey, so explain to me a little bit more too, because look, I don't have any kids. I don't have any, not even pets or plants or anything like that. So for those people that don't have children of their own, how do you compare the pride you took in yourself and your accomplishments, especially with the Mets and doing so well on the big stage, versus the pride of a parent when you see your child do something amazing? Is it kind of the same, a little bit different? How does that work?
Yeah, there's no better feeling. No better feeling than seeing your child, get to, realize his dream to go out there and perform. A little nerve-wracking, but, just seeing him out there and then being able to excel at it is the best feeling in the world.
And it's paid off for him literally. He signed that big contract that everybody knows about. As a dad, are you making them pick up any extra dinners when you visit or anything like that? Because I know my dad would definitely make me break out my credit card for that one.
Well, he's pretty good at that. He normally takes care of everything when we do go out. So hopefully I taught him those lessons when he was a lot younger. So now he's just going out there and doing what he normally does.
Oh, that's great. It all starts with an awesome foundation, and it sounds like you gave him as good of a base as possible to become as great as he has. I want to get back and wrap with you, Pat, about some other parts of your baseball career, because it wasn't just the Mets, and it wasn't just even affiliated minor league baseball. You got to go to Japan for 2 seasons. You got to play for a bunch of teams on the independent circuit. And having done a year of radio in the Indies, I know it's very different than what affiliated ball can be. So I want to go a little moving with Mahomes around the world. What do you remember from some of those places? Like your 2 years in Japan with Yokohama, that's got to be night and day compared to pitching in the States, right? What do you remember from those days? Any good stories?
Well, definitely different, different brand of baseball, different philosophies. But one thing about Japan for me is seeing how hard they worked over there. I mean, baseball all day, every day, their work ethic. And it also made me that much more hungrier to, want to get back to the States and perform here so I could stay here.
And that was right after Japan is when you latched on with the Mets. So obviously something worked that you got over there to bring over here for those 2 great years.
Exactly. I saw some guys and what they worked on and how to control, and that it wasn't, all the guys over there, they don't throw 95, but they were able to pitch and be successful and get guys out. So I learned, how to, locate the ball a little bit better, how to, make quality pitches. And I brought that back with me and was able to be successful with it over here.
Then what about the end of your career? You go the independent route a little bit. You play, Southern Maryland or in Grand Prairie, Sioux Falls, all these places, Long Island with the, here sort of back where you started with your Mets career. What do you remember from those days? How was it different from your big league days? And anything, I mean, a lot of the people watching this, I'm sure, would love to hear any Long Island stories you have because you were back a little bit local. What do you remember from those days toward the tail end?
Well, I mean, it was a deal where I was still playing baseball, still getting to play the game that I love. I mean, maybe not at the highest level, but still competitive. A lot of, ex-big leaguers, a lot of guys that were trying to get back to the big leagues, and then also, a lot of college kids, younger kids that, are trying to give back, trying to teach them how to play the game. So maybe they would have a chance, one day to get up there and perform because, I mean, those guys are trying to get there. So everybody is very, very competitive. So that was just so much fun to go out there and do my thing.
Awesome. Well, Pat, thanks so much for taking a trip down memory lane with us. You're taking a trip. You're in the car now. You're hitting the links is right. Yeah.
Yeah, finna go out there and swing them a little bit.
How are you out with the clubs?
I'm pretty good. I'm about a 4 handicap, so I'm doing pretty good.
Hey, not bad at all. Very impressive. Well, have a good round. Shoot well today. Continued best of luck to Patrick and you with your travels and making sure he's staying in line and doing well. And thanks for, again, bringing us back some of these great memories, talking about some great times in Mets history that you were a big part of.
Well, anytime. And once again, thanks for having me. Love to talk Mets baseball. So go Mets. And I'm glad I was able to be on here.
All right. Appreciate that. For Pat Mahomes, I'm Mike Janella. Thanks for hanging out.